I was worried if people didn't have notice, nobody would really be around. I don't have a lot of time, so give it a couple more minutes, and hopefully people join. Then I'll just run through trades. You can see Ren moved up nicely, but all right, let's see if a few more people come in the next few minutes. All right, whatever. Okay. I don't have a lot of time, like I said, and I didn't really give everybody enough notice that we were going to be doing a stream, so I'll just run through my trades, and I can answer any questions you guys have. Since this is only premium members, we don't have any basic bitches in this stream, so just use the chat in YouTube if you have any questions. So, all right. Let me see. All right, so Ren, this is that 973 entry I shared earlier, right above the bottom of that range where I anticipated a bounce. Obviously, we got it. Coming back down at the red candle now, we pushed up 5%, got resistance right there on one of my old stop losses, which is right at right at a resistance level. So we're dipping back down. My stop loss is still down here, at my old SLB, where I still actually have a trade from way back. I think that's open down there. I'd have to check my my midterm trade. I forgot exactly what I have open, but yeah, we'll have like a tiny little correction here. So if this is a big corrective wave, or at least the completion of a big corrective wave, I anticipated this being the bottom. If you remember, we got in over here, and then we got this really nice run, and then we pretty much corrected all the way back down. This would be a nice double bottom to bounce. Actually, I think we were triple bottom. No, yeah, that would just be a double bottom on this more recent one because we dipped lower before. But this would be a really great time to get another bounce like we had here, if not bigger. So that's what I'm playing for. This could be a really, really big play right here. As long as we hold, obviously. But so far it looks really good. I don't want to move my stop loss up yet and get too aggressive. If you didn't get into Ren earlier when I shared my trade, getting in right now, not great, because if you were to enter right here, you know what you could do? You could probably enter right at the current price, even though I know it's correcting, but it's bouncing between the 55 and 99. If you guys, whoever watches this, I know there's only like 5 people in here now, but whoever watches the playback later, if you watched the last stream from last night, I did a lot, talked a lot about my Ichima model and talked about some educational topics. Most importantly, we looked at how strong the Ichima model held on a lot of these charts. And you can see on Ren, the 55 and the 99 have been huge support and resistance, right? All these big rejections. And here, a lot of rejections right at the 55. We broke through, rejected the 99, came back down, supported the 55. The candle before this one, that green candle, you can see the body's up here, but the wick goes all the way down. So we're sitting back on the 55 now. If you were to buy in right now, it's not actually a bad place given the support we've seen with our Ichima supports. It's not great to buy in the middle of a red candle, but it's not bad considering it's holding pretty well at the support. If you were to enter here, you could use about 2% risk, which is not very much at all, and then you have the top of the support range, the super duper support here, and then it broke down, and then we had a little bit of a range form, and that's where we came up with this range, from the top of this major support, super duper support range, to the bottom of the super duper support range. If you entered right here, stop loss goes a little bit below the top of that support range, you're in a pretty good position. It's not great. It is very possible, as you can see, to hit that support top and then dip down into the range again. It might stop you out. But there's definitely a chance if you were to buy in now, it could be a really great entry. I might give it a little longer because we have 26 minutes left in this hourly candle. Might be a good idea to get down to like 10 minutes remaining. If we're still holding around this level between the EMAs, then it would probably be a better time to buy in. Right now, there's definitely a possibility that this candle is going to correct a little bit further before we get to the next candle, which pushes up. So it's hard to say. It's definitely a more risky play to buy right now. Even if you were to set your stop loss down at like a full 3% risk, you can see you're still right around my original entry and the other people in the group, right? Our stop loss is down here below the bottom of that support range, so it's a tough call. It's a little bit more risky than my entry in my earlier call, but you could still get into Ren now because the chances, if we were to get a big breakout move, it could potentially be like a 20% run, right? 30%, 40% run if this really is the bottom. If this double bottom gives us the push we need to go on the next big Ren run, like not these big 20% runs that we've caught on some of my really good entries. I'm talking about the 50, 120% runs that we got into when I first started talking about Ren and getting into trades with you guys. Since there's so much potential for massive gains here, getting in now and taking a little bit of a more risky trade isn't a terrible idea, but obviously it's not as good as getting in at the bottom like we did. So I'll leave that up to you. That's my thinking, at least. So I got into the ZIL trade. If you saw, I put it in short-term trades. We were riding the 2 EMAs, had a ton of support, so that's when I got in. Sure enough, we immediately pushed up. Now we're back above the cloud. We're definitely looking pretty bullish. It looks like this is a correction I had the Fibonacci extension here. I deleted it because I wanted to redo it with you guys in the stream. So you know what I'm going to say. The 1618 extension is the best starting point. It's not precise, but the 1618 extension, more often than not, is pretty much exactly where we go on a lot of these moves. If you remember some of my calls in the past where I got like my big wave 3 target at the 1618 extension and it would hit within like less than 1% off the 1618. So it's a really, really great target to use for a bullish run on an impulse wave, like a motive wave, like a wave 3. So in this case, this would be wave 1, wave 2, just finish the correction, an ABC, right, with the double bottom here, right at the bottom of the cloud where the EMAs were here, and then the bottom of the cloud. Both times of this double bottom, both bottoms on the double bottom got support from our Ichimoku supports. In this case, it was the EMAs. In this case, the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud. So we have wave 1, wave 2, and now wave 3 is what we're in right now. So I think there's a lot of potential in ZIL, which is why I got into this trade, partially because it looked like it was an ideal entry, but also there was such a strong upside if we did get that breakout where we could talk about some, substantial gains here. So let's do this. Just finish this count out. Say the wave 3 goes to the 1618. I don't really know what would happen with 4 and 5. It's not my concern. A lot of the time, I'll highlight where like 1, 2, and 3 are, and then 4 and 5 aren't really exact. They're not like the perfect model. But what's more important in these scenarios is 1, 2, and 3, because this is a wave 3 trade, right? This is a wave 3 call. This is the start of wave 3. That's what I'm calling a potential 32% wave 3. Getting in now with 1.8% risk was an awesome call, obviously, right? Now, in theory, this is one of those examples. I've talked about different strategies where some people have a higher or lower risk tolerance, right? Depending on your risk profile. Oh, some more people join the stream. Guys, I went over some good stuff in the last 5 or 10 minutes. So if you're just joining, you could obviously watch this stream back later. You could watch it tomorrow or anytime in the future if we go over something that you think is helpful. So go back and watch it. But anyway, I'm showing you the ZIL call that I put out a little while ago and how this is a wave 3 trade. But yeah, when you have a higher or lower risk tolerance, this is an example where I only risked 1.8% on this trade because we were sitting right on the 55 and the 99 EMAs. Really strong support from the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud, which is one of our other Ichima dynamic supports, right? So that was an ideal entry. Now, if I had a really low risk tolerance, if my risk profile was such that I've had a really bad month trading, I can't afford to take any losses, I have to be really careful to reduce my losses so I don't lose any of my capital, this could be a significant enough move up where I could actually lock in or at least remove the risk. So we're only up like 1.5% here, right? 1.8%. But since it broke out pretty much immediately after I got into the trade within like 2 hours, I could move my stop loss up to my entry here. Now, I'm not going to do that because obviously I can afford to risk 1.8% on this trade. If I had to, I could have set my stop loss lower and risked, 2 or 3%, 2.5%, 3% on this trade, because my risk profile permits it. But I just wanted you guys to know, just because I'm not moving my stop loss up right now to my entry, doesn't mean that you shouldn't. It would be a really aggressive move to do so because we all know that, look at all these candles, you could easily have a little wick that comes down and would then stop you out, but it wouldn't stop me and the other guys who have our stop loss down here. We would still be in the trade. That's why you don't want to be too aggressive with moving up your stop loss, because when you put your stop loss at your entry price, you're now risk-free. You can't possibly lose any capital, but if a quick wick comes down, you might get stopped out. So I'm not moving up my stop loss. This is just a good example of, for any of you guys out there who are really in a tight position now where you just can't lose any capital, it probably would be a good idea to just move up your stop loss, and then if it does come down and wick you out, who cares? You got all your money back. Wait for the next trade, right? Sometimes you have to do it that way. When I'm in that position, I'm not really. I'm trading pretty successfully, as you guys know nowadays, so I don't find myself in that position where I can't afford to take a little bit of risk. But back when I was trading and I was more risk averse, when I was trading that way, I would enter a trade like this. If I broke out 1% up, I would just move my stop loss up to my entry price. It's now a risk-free trade, right? And that would happen sometimes within a few minutes. I would enter a trade. It would move up 1%. I would move my stop loss to my entry. It's now officially a risk-free trade. Worst case scenario, I break even. I can't possibly take a loss. Now, there were a ton of instances where I would then get stopped out. I moved my stop loss up too aggressively. The next candle came down a little wick, hit my stop loss. I got kicked out of the trade. If I left my stop loss a little bit lower, I still would have been in the trade, and then it went on a big run. I saw that happen countless times. There were some instances where I aggressively move my stop loss up, I get stopped out for break even, and then a bunch of other people make tens of thousands of dollars on a trade that I could have easily made tens of thousands of dollars on. But that's fine. Like, I accepted that. The way I was looking at it is I might get stopped out and I might not be able to continue in this trade, but I will still have all of my capital. So I did that for several months, and then after a while, I got to the point where I was able to take on some more risk. Anyway, so this is a good example to share those different risk profile assessments so you can determine what the best path for you is. I'm going to let this play out, obviously. High potential for this wave 3 if we get, if it holds and we keep moving up. Definitely looks like we could see a 30% move here on ZIL. Of course, we need the rest of the market to hold tight, and BTC isn't exactly looking bullish. Volume is still really low. We're seeing it, little peaks and troughs here in the volume, but it's very small. It's kind of hard to make out here because you have some larger spikes. Now, I still believe that we're going to push back up and get that inverted BART. So I think we're going to push back up pretty much to like 11.9, right where we started before this big dump. Now, sometimes that happens with one big green candle that matches the dump. Sometimes it happens with several smaller green candles. Let me show you. I haven't actually looked at this to see if there are good examples here, but I'm willing to bet there are. So this is what you see, right? Big green pump, big red dump. Big red dump, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 green candles that pump you back up, right? So that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's when you see those big dumps like that, that's why people commonly use the Bart Simpson meme, because it's kind of funny. You see this big move up, big green move up, it moves sideways for a while, then it comes right back down, making the Bart Simpson shape. Well, this is just an inverted Bart. We dumped, moved sideways for a while. I think we push back up to where we originally were. If we fall from here, we're probably going to go much lower, closer to the 10K bottom. I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'll just get stopped out of my trades for profit, and then we'll be able to buy back in at a much lower price. So it's obviously not a bad thing. If the market goes up, we make money. If the market goes down, we use stop losses on all of our trades. We manage our risk properly. So if the market tanks, we don't lose a penny, and then we make a shit ton of money because we're able to buy back in at a much lower price. Using a really strong risk mitigation strategy like we use allows you to win no matter what happens. The market could go up, the market could go down. You don't have to worry about shorting, margin, trading with leverage, none of that. Just trade your normal trades. If the market goes down and you get stopped out for a profit or a small loss, fine. When the price goes down 30% and you buy back into those altcoins, you're going to make a killing because you have all of your capital left. And all the people who didn't have a stop loss lost a shit ton of money because they're holding a bag of some shit coin that's now worth 30% less than it was. We got out at the top right before it dumped because our stop loss saved us, and then all of our capital is sitting on the side. We can buy back in when it's 30% down and laugh at that asshole who just took a big dump on their portfolio and lost a quarter of its value. So anyway, with BTC, as long as it pushes back up and we get that match and we go back up to like 11.8 over the next day or so, all the alt trades that I'm in, which admittedly is only a few, I haven't spotted any more big entries right now. A lot of stuff I got stopped out of, so I'm just going to play it safe until I see what happens. I just got into that ZIL trade today, and I got back into REN today, but I haven't made any other huge moves. So we want to see BTC make that push back up, but if it does correct, I'm prepared for that eventuality. I think what's more likely and more probable is that we remain bullish and we push back up to just shy of 12K. I think tomorrow could actually be a good day. We can see a lot more volume tomorrow for a few different reasons. You could just see there's an uptick in searches, news coverage. There's something's going on. The fact that Goldman Sachs just released a bullish analysis on Bitcoin and told their clients, their investors, that they're bullish on Bitcoin, that in and of itself is a pretty strong indicator. Some people were saying like, oh, Goldman's a bank, you can't trust them. They're just trying to dump their bags on people. I'm like, where does this shit come from? It makes no sense. You're talking about a financial institution that makes money for their clients, or they lose those clients. So they're going to tell their clients to buy something so they can dump on them. I think people have gotten to the point where they believe the real world is the same as crypto. It's ridiculous. Like, these guys on crypto Twitter act like reality is the same as what we deal with the crypto market. Sorry, the stock market's not like that. Goldman Sachs is not going to tell all of their rich clients to buy some shitcoin so they can offload and dump on them. That's utterly absurd. Goldman Sachs is not a crypto Twitter influencer, guys. Anyway, so we need BTC to hold for my alts to do well. So far, ZIL is holding. I could still take a really small loss. I'm only risking 1.8%, so that's a tiny, tiny amount of risk here. I have no problem taking 1.8% risk at all. Now the new Ren entry again is holding so far. If you got in right around here in this range, you're taking on a little bit more risk than the other guys in the group are that got in with me, because we got in right at the bottom. But there's still some potential there. Now the trades I'm still in from yesterday, we have my link trade still in link. We're just kind of at break even right now. I haven't moved my stop loss up. It's still down in the around 230 or so for link. BTC LTC pairing, I got stopped out. So it was holding at the Ichima supports, and then it just shit the bed. LTC has been having a really hard time. So I am done with Litecoin right now. I'm not interested in getting back in. I think for the long term, it's not going anywhere and it's going to do really well, but there's so much FUD right now, I wouldn't suggest getting into a Litecoin position. If it goes in a 20% pump, I'm happy for you if you're holding it and that does happen. The chances of that happening are probably like 1 out of 100, so I wouldn't go there. So I got into another trade on HOT. It actually immediately, well, it dipped slightly after I got in, and then it pushed up. We actually pumped pretty nicely above the 222. I was about to tweet you guys and brag about it and say how awesome was this call. Then we came right back down. So that was a little bit of a bullshit pump, maybe trying to trap some people, and then it came back down. Although you can see down at these lower price levels for HOT, Hollow it has a propensity to have those quick little pumps and then a retrace. Now in this instance, we have a bit of a pennant that formed off the last pump, where we pumped off the bottom here. So we had a strong trendline resistance there. We broke that. Now that became a bit of a trendline support. We have a little bit of a pennant forming this way, and you can see we've been moving sideways from there. And then we're getting a curved formation. So what you get is one of these. Whoops. This is really hard with a mouse. You can see where it gets compressed, right? So it's consolidating within a tighter spot, similar to what you get with an ascending or a descending triangle. So when you have these sort of wormholes, we're poking above it here, but mostly a majority of that trading is restricted to within that range. We could see a big move. It could still go down. But if we do get a big move here, given on how strong that initial pump was on that first hourly candle, was a 23% pump, and it didn't immediately dump. That was not a pump and dump. I've explained this to you guys before, right? You always can tell the difference very easily between a pump and dump. If you have an hourly candle that goes up 20% and the next hourly candle doesn't go down 20%, it was not a pump and dump. Not a full 20. So this one went up 23.5%. If the next single candle dumped that back 70 or 80% of that move, all right, that's a pump and dump. In this case, this was some people placing really big orders. Then some people made some money on it because they made 20%. Anybody who bought down low, they sold off. And this is just normal selling. You don't see a huge spike in dumping, right? There's not a huge increase in sell volume. It's pretty standard. We had a little bit of a jump in sell volume here, but I think, again, that was people taking profit. This doesn't look like it was a pump and dump. It looks like it is sustainable. If this was a wave one, it's hard to see on the hourly chart because you only have a single candle. If I go down to the 15-minute, you'll see a lot more data. It makes a lot more sense. So if we were thinking of this as like kind of like a wave one, down here was a wave two, that puts us kind of in wave three now. This isn't a great chart to use Elliott wave on just because of how it's built with this big pump candle right here. It makes it tough to really differentiate between the wave structures. I'm not going to bore you with potential wave counts. All I would say is, based on all the other aspects of the chart, not considering waves, I'm looking at a potential breakout zone here, especially when you can see the behavior that we've had where we keep getting these instances of a dramatic increase in volume. We haven't had that recently. We actually had some nice movement here, but there was substantially less volume here than there was during these earlier pumps. I think this could actually make a big move. We still have the RSI is reasonably low in the 15-minute. We never got, even on this big pump, we never got into oversold territory before we corrected. So we should have plenty of room to move up here. Anyway, leaving this trade open, I'm risking 2.3% for my original entry. It's up slightly, but I'm not going to adjust my stop loss, obviously. There's nowhere to adjust it to. But we do have all the Ichima supports here, so there's a solid potential there. I got stopped out of Quantum, where I had locked in just 2.5%. Kind of sucked because I I had high hopes for this trade. There were a lot of great positive aspects to it, and I just misread it. I wasn't able to identify a good bottom. I thought the bottom of the cloud was going to hold over here, and it didn't. So it happens. It's not the first, not the last. But, I mean, I didn't lose money. I still made a little bit of profit, you know. I'm talking about how it sucks. Look at me. I'm complaining about making 2.5%. You know how many people out there are losing 20% every day because they don't know what they're doing and they can't manage risk? So, no regrets. I made 2.5%. Obviously, I'm happy with it. But I obviously would have liked to turn this into the trade. I feel like it could have been a lot of potential there. I'm not going to mess around with coming up with alternative counts. This count's failed. This is no longer a valid count, but I'm curious to see what other sorts of counts I can come up with. I'm just not going to do it right now because I don't think there's a good entry here. We're below all the Ichima supports. We don't have another support until my original entry from my first trade, which is still another 2% or so. Yeah, about 2% lower. So I'm not interested in getting in right now. If we go back down to this level, like 261, 263, right between there, I might consider getting back into Quantum, but chances are, based on how it's been moving, that's probably going to happen before I wake up. But we'll see. So I got 5.5% on my original XLM trade, right? I had all this other profit. I never moved up my stop loss. I should have moved it up here to below the 222 and the top of the cloud. So there's one of our Ichima dynamic supports at the 222 and then the top of the cloud. Ideally, where I would have put my stop loss would have been like right up here. I could have locked in 7.75% profit on this trade. But the way the timing worked, I just didn't do it. I didn't want to get too aggressive with my stops. And again, that's a personal thing. Some of you guys in this exact same situation might have moved up your stop loss. I just chose to keep it a little lower, and I only made 5.5%. I didn't think we were going to come down this far and stop me out. It is what it is. I'm happy with that trade. Now, this is the other chart. We've been coming down since my newer entry, but I'm pretty sure I have 2.3% at risk here. I'm pretty sure that's enough where we can still come down a little further. I don't think I'm going to get stopped out of this trade. If you're not in this trade at all, I think there's a good trade to be made here because we've retraced pretty far from this initial move up. So if you didn't get in with me earlier, right now, imagine getting in at this price. It's obviously lower, right? I got in up here at 755. You could get in substantially lower down here. So if you were to buy here, you could get into the same trade I'm in and have the same stop loss, more or less, and you would only be risking 1.25% because you're buying lower and using the same stop loss, so your risk is only 1.25 compared to my risk, which is 2.3%. That being said, I don't think buying right now is actually a good choice. I would wait until we get support and finally freaking bounce. I hope that happens soon because we're sitting right above a support here. Let me show you. You can see it right there, right? So there was substantial traffic and a lot of support and resistance right at that level. So, including this wick down here. This would be a good time to get in if it gets down to that level and bounces. What I would probably say is if it moves down, hits that level right at 0.0743. If it were to go down another 0.5% to right there, I would probably set my buy order. As soon as I see a green candle bouncing off of that, I'd probably set a buy just above the support. And then you would only risk a pretty small amount. I might want to go a little lower than my original, so maybe if I were to do this entry that I'm showing you, I might want to extend it to like 1.5% risk. 1.5 would be good. That would take us down a bit further to that next minor support. So yeah, that would be good. So if you do want to get into XLM, there's still a potential trade to be made there with pretty low risk, less than 1.5% risk. My existing trade is still open. What else? We got a new BNB trade. That's still been moving sideways. Haven't seen anything big. But guys, I've told you before, I mean, the original call here took forever, right? So I made this call for you guys, with you guys, all the way back here. for BNB. We moved up, we came back down, and then I made another entry over here. So I doubled my position essentially. Kept moving sideways this entire time. From start to finish, we essentially moved sideways for 6 days. It was a full week of just moving sideways before it finally broke out. And when it did, it went on an immediate 16% run. So that's why I don't sell trades. When you ask me, hey, we've been moving sideways on BNB forever, should I just sell it and get into something else? I say, hell no, I'm committed. I have my stop loss. If I get stopped out, fine. I'll take the small loss. I'm okay with that. I've accepted that that might happen, but I'm not going to dump that trade because I got into it because I saw substantial potential for a breakout move. If I thought that there was going to be a breakout move and we haven't gotten it yet, why would I sell it? If anything, that just means we're closer to that breakout, right? Because we've gone longer without getting it. So in this case, we might move sideways for a little while, but I think we can see another big move. BNB corrected quite a lot from where it was on that first big run that it went on recently. We got a pretty big drop down into the low 20s. So this really is as good a time as any to get in. This is a great time to get into BNB. What I would suggest, you should consider longer term and shorter term trades together. So with BNB, I've talked about this in another video where I discussed one of my methods for accumulating longer term investments is like in this instance, right? I get into BNB, say we go on a 20 or 30% run. Instead of setting my stop loss and selling all of my positions for a 30% profit, instead what I would do is sell 90% of my position for that 30% profit. And that extra 10% that I had goes in my BNB cold storage, and that's my long-term BNB investment. The next time I do a trade on BNB, I will only sell 90% of it. I'll take my big profits, and the 10% left over goes into storage with the rest of my BNB, and that's my long-term bag. It's a really great way to accumulate, especially coins that you really like that you commonly get into shorter-term trades on. So for anybody who does a lot of shorter-term trading, like me, with me, if you guys learn from me, I'm assuming you do it. If you trade like me, that's one of the greatest tools I've come up with to accumulate these positions, because it's really hard to take $1,000 of your capital and stick it into cold storage for a year, right? Like if I buy $1,000 worth of BNB and I throw it in cold storage and I don't plan on touching it for a year, well, that's $1,000 of capital I really don't have to work with. It's hard to make that decision to just tie up all that capital for so long. So my solution that I was able to come up with was to do what I just said. I would get into these trades. I get into BNB day trades all the time. Every time I get into a day trade on BNB, if I make a substantial amount and I'm up like 15, 20%, I will save 10% or 15% of my entire bag and set it aside, and that goes in my long-term position. Then I sell the rest and I take my profits. So it's something you should consider. I think BNB is one of the best possible trades you can make in all of crypto for a longer term play. We've talked about this a lot before. If there's newer people here who haven't heard me talk about it, a few reasons. A lot of it goes into my FATA pimp model. When I talk about FA, you know what that is. TA, you know what that is. People don't often know what all the market psychology is. And when I talk about the P in FATA pimp, refers to people. And older members here obviously know what I'm talking about. But for newer people, we'll get into this more in a later video since I'm redoing the Vader University stuff. But the people portion of my model refers to, it could be an individual person, right? So I've made trades based on personality traits of Roger Ver. I made $36,000. 30, it might have been $34,000 in a month once. Mostly because I made a shit ton on BCH. And my trade on BCH, one of the big factors that went into it was Roger Ver. He started doing a lot more interviews. I saw that he was putting himself out there more. He was getting into less combative interviews and more promotional stuff where he was doing whatever he could to promote BCH. Then he was talking about, went on the whole public campaign trying to tell everybody how Bitcoin Cash is Bitcoin and Bitcoin is Bitcoin Core, and he really started driving that home. So I was seeing all that behavior, and I knew that something big was in the works. I don't know if he was making a big move or what, but when you look at him from a personality perspective, he's a narcissist, right? He's obviously a self-aggrandizing narcissist. He thinks he's God's gift, and he would kill his own mother if it means he'd succeed. Can you imagine if you said to Roger Ver, like, if you shoot that 5-year-old child in the head, Bitcoin Cash will take over Bitcoin? You think that he wouldn't do it? That guy would do anything to succeed. So, seeing all that and looking at some of those variables, I got into a big position on Bitcoin Cash, and guess what happened? It utterly exploded on 3 individual trades. I made 400% profit on my Bitcoin Cash position. So, looking at an individual person could yield substantial profits from something as simple as looking at their personality traits. I've made similar predictions when it comes to Justin Sun. You look at what he's pulled off with Tron and then buying BitTorrent, which was a very well-known internet service provider, internet-based service provider. I've been using BitTorrent since I was in high school. I mean, I was always using Azurius, which became Views, but yeah, the BitTorrent platform though, to have access to all of those people, he knows what he's doing. Like Justin Sun, you can hate him as a person, but that little fucker is one smart little Chinese dude. I mean, I know they're really good at math, but this motherfucker is another level. Like, he's young, he's now a billionaire, he created a crypto way later than a lot of the other guys who were there at the beginning, and it shot up to the top of the coin market cap list. Like, Tron is a major player in the cryptocurrency space, and it's run by a kid. You know, he started this shit as a kid, and he's absolutely killing it. He's doing the lunch with Warren Buffett. He obviously has problems where he doesn't promote himself well and looks like an idiot doing stupid shit like faking a Tesla giveaway. But whatever your personal problems are with Justin Sun, I am telling you, that fucker knows what he's doing. He is a really smart bastard, and he is not going to get taken down by people spreading FUD about his coins. He knows what he's doing, and Tron is going to go very far. I used to hate Tron because it's a shit coin, and I hate it, and people got wrecked in it. I made a shit ton in 2017 on it, but a lot of people hate it, and I hated it too. But now looking at it long term, when you look into the individual person, just Justin Sun, throw out all the other stuff about it, how many pump and dumps there are on it, forget about all that. Forget about the ICO. Just look at Justin Sun, another narcissist, somebody who's young and driven, and who is most definitely going to be a multi-billionaire. Tron's going far. Now, beyond that, BTT, his acquisition of BTT was genius because he now has instant access to hundreds of millions of users. Hundreds of millions of people use BitTorrent. So just by getting this one company, which he didn't even spend that much on, it was like something, however many $1,000,000. It wasn't that much. It wasn't like 100 mil. It was like, I don't even know, 20 million maybe. By buying BitTorrent, he now has access to 300 million BitTorrent users that actually use BitTorrent already. So imagine if you're downloading the new Kanye album on BitTorrent and you see a pop-up that says, click here to use 5 TRX tokens to get your download 5 times as fast. Right? Like, there are so many ways that he can apply this technology and benefit from it. I think it was utterly genius to get BitTorrent, and I think that's going to completely explode in the future as well. No, it's not TRX, it would be BTT, because now there's a BitTorrent token, but you guys know what I mean. Imagine if you could use BitTorrent tokens to get your content faster. If instead of waiting 6 minutes for an album to download, you can get it in 30 seconds because you get additional speed and you get access to those other trackers, because that's how torrents work. But anyway, big tangent, sorry about that. But I feel the same way when it comes to BNB about my FATAPAM model. I love the technicals of BNB. I love the fundamentals of BNB. We've talked about all that before. Now, a lot of people don't think about individual people like we do, right? But look at CZ. Very similar situation to Justin Sun. Fucking genius little gook who made $1 billion completely taking over this entire industry with the biggest exchange for altcoins. Like, this motherfucker. These guys are so sharp, they are not going to get taken down by FUD. CZ also knows what he's doing. The second he came out and said that they were going to be doing a Binance US exchange, you think he would put that out there and have all these plans and not be able to get BNB on the Binance US exchange? I guarantee you they are doing whatever it takes. I don't care if they have to bribe people, if they have to build new tech or write new code, whatever they have to do. They will do whatever is needed to get BNB on Binance US because they want their main token to be used to pay fees by all of their US customers that they're now losing by closing Binance to US customers. So is it possible that BNB will not be on Binance US. A lot of people have said, oh, BNB won't work and the SEC won't allow them to have an exchange in the US if they're using their stupid exchange coin. That may be true. Maybe BNB is not on Binance US. But if it is, if he makes an announcement and says officially these are the coins that are going to be available on Binance US, and the first one listed is BNB, I guarantee you, I would bet you $10,000 that BNB runs up at least 15% when that announcement comes out. And if he comes out and says BNB is not going to be on Binance US because of regulatory concerns, we're not able to put our primary token on the US version of the exchange, but it's still available on the regular Binance site, it's not going to have that much of an impact because everybody's generally assuming that there is going to be some complications with a lot of these coins when it comes to regulatory concerns. But I'm telling you, I really think that BNB is going to be on Binance US. I think every coin that he announces, just like when we used to see things pump because they were going to be on Coinbase, we still see something, hey, this is going to be on Coinbase next month, and then it'll pump. When they announce what coins are actually going to be on Binance US exchange, all those are going to pump, but BNB will pump more than anything because that's something that is particularly relevant given the fact that it's the token for the actual exchange and it's used to pay fees. I think it's going to have a huge run. Not to mention, there were a lot of people who dumped BNB when they announced that they were closing to US users. A lot of people dumped their BNB thinking, well, I'm not going to be able to use it anymore because I'm getting kicked off, so they just got rid of it. But they normally use it to pay fees. If they know that they're going to be able to use Binance US, they're all going to buy back the BNB. It's just for so many different reasons. There's a lot of different ways to logically analyze how that would play out. But my main point being, I think BNB is an absolutely huge bet. And then long term, just like the other guys I was telling you about, CZ knows what he's doing. He's going to get 10 times richer than he already is, if that's even possible, because that kid is so loaded. BNB is going to be a $100 coin within a year, I think. I would not be surprised if that happens probably within a month of Binance US exchange going. I wouldn't be surprised to see it do like another 2, 3, 4x. Now, long term, I think it could be a couple $100. I think BNB could be in the top 5 probably. Considering, think of it this way: Coinbase handles so much volume, so much volume. Everybody uses Coinbase as an on ramp in the States. Well, now we can use Kraken and stuff, but when I got started, Coinbase was really the only option for normal people who didn't have the technical know-how to utilize different methods. Coinbase doesn't have an international exchange, or they do now, but originally it was just for American customers to be able to use something as an on-ramp to get into the crypto space. And then Binance was a separate thing where it was just dealing with altcoins. So when Binance becomes Coinbase, that's essentially completely doubling their business, right? So Coinbase has huge business from people getting into crypto and using it as an on-ramp. You can't use Binance as it currently stands as a fiat on-ramp. They announced that you would be able to, and then they shut it down. So they never actually allowed it to fully go through. I can't use a credit card to buy Bitcoin through Binance right now, but when Binance US comes out, I will be able to. They are going to be taking so much market share from Coinbase because right now, I will buy Bitcoin using Coinbase or Kraken and then get it onto Binance and trade on Binance or trade on other exchanges. Once Binance has Binance US and it's a fiat on ramp, I'm never using anything else. I'm still going to be trading on Binance International because I have an account registered in another country that I use to trade. But it's not going to be my primary place of trading. I'm probably going to focus more on Coinbase Pro and Binance US. And we talked about this in the channel dedicated to the switchover, but I think I'm going to be doing more stuff on KuCoin. But I'll probably make a decision in the next 2 or 3 weeks before September, and then we can have a big discussion where we all decide, as a group, everybody can kind of vote in their opinion what they think is the best. Because I'm going to be spending what you guys tell me where you want to trade is where I'm going to focus more of my energy. So there's 2 ways to do it. I'm either going to do all charts based on the Binance data, and we can use that for other trades. Ideally, I wouldn't do that. I'd like to use the actual data for the exchange we're trading on. So we're going to have to consider that stuff. But But yeah, all the tangents I just went on come back to BNB being a massive superstar of a play. I got back in. I bought some at $9, $16, and $20, and then I'm getting into this trade now. I'm buying it at $30. I am constantly getting into BNB trades, and every time I take a portion of it and put it in my long-term bag. So anyway, BNB, you can still enter now if you're not in it. It's pretty much right where my entry was. It's riding up with the EMAs. They're riding parallel. The cloud is still bullish. Everything here shows me there's a lot of support. My 3% risk here has all of the other supports there. The 222 EMA is in there, which has held up a ton before. You can see over here. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential here for BNB too. This also, everything is relying on BTC doing what I said it was going to do. That's why I don't want to get into too many trades besides what we're already in. Now, KMD is up nicely. When I was in the car on the way home earlier, I adjusted my stop loss. But I got to do that again. I think I'm going to modify that one more time. So it looks like from entry, the initial run was almost 16%. Right now, I'm up 11%. My stop loss is right in the middle of the EMA spread, because I was in the car on the way home and I figured I'll just take the stop if I have to. The only thing I'm considering here is if I should do 2 stop losses, one right here, just below the 222, lock in some nice profits, because that would lock me in. If I place a stop loss right around here, so we have the 222 EMA there, can serve as a support. The 786 fib extension is actually right there too, kind of matching up. But so yeah, we could get some support there. I'd be locking in 6.75% roughly. Let me think. This is another example where you guys need to make a decision for yourself. But let me tell you what the options are. What I'm going to do in this instance, I'm going to leave half of my KMD position down here. So my stop loss is going to be all the way down to my entry. So at least I'm risk-free. And then the other half I'm going to put up really high. So I'm locking in almost all the profit that I have now, which is 11%. But I'm going to lock in, well, I can't lock in more because I want to get under the 222. So I'm only going to be able to lock in like 7% here. All right, let me do this. I'll show you. All right, so I'm going to lock in 7% profit with a stop loss right here. I can move it up a little bit. That's going to lock in like what, 1%? 1.5%. All right. So by having these two different stop losses, this is my logic. There's a couple ways to do this. You could sell right here, take 11% profit. That's one way to go about it. The other option, put your entire stop loss right up here and lock in 7.5%, 8% by putting your stop loss below our next support, which is the 222. So that's the other option. You could lock in all your profit there. Or you could say, you know what, KMD looks like this could be a pretty big run, a continued run. The fact that we're back above the 222 is a really big sign, right? So I don't want to get stopped out. I want to stay in this trade. I don't want to get stopped out for 7.5% profit if it dips. I would rather leave my stop loss all the way down here because I would let it dip and then go up again because I think it's going to go up a ton. I'm more inclined towards that latter belief, right, where I think we could see a really big move here. So I really don't want to get stopped out. That being said, I'm going to sleep right now. I'm not 100% sure about BTC. I do think BTC should push up or continue moving sideways. or push back up to the high 11s, almost 12K area before we move back down if we do it all. I expect to see that, but I'm not 100% sure. It's kind of up in the air. And since my KMD trade is paired against Bitcoin, if it does stop out while I'm asleep and Bitcoin happens to dump at the same time, I might take a big loss. So for all those reasons, right, you could there's a lot of stuff to consider. All those reasons I just explained, that's why I really want to lock in the profit and just not risk it, because if I leave my stop loss down here and everything dumps while I'm asleep, I'm losing all my profits and I'm going to be taking a loss because BTC is also dumping. So my solution is to split it 50-50. Now, that's not always good. For some of you guys, you only have $200 in this trade. So for you, it might be best just to sell, take your 10% or 11% profit, and walk away and build upon it in the next trade, right? But for some of you guys, you might have $2,000 in it, and you're also going to sleep, and you don't want to risk missing out on the gain. So you're going to set your stop loss nice and high. If it does dip down, you'll take the nice 7.5% profit, and if it moves up, that's even better, right? And some of you really want to get into this trade for the longer term. So you'd rather leave your stop loss a lot lower, and you're willing to accept that you might lose all this profit if it does come back down. So there's a lot of stuff to consider. The reasons I just explained are why I'm going to split it. But the other reason why I'm so confident, so I can show you, remember how I noted specifically how we pumped above the 222. Last night's live stream, we looked at this for a while, and I discussed all the Ichimoku dynamics, support and resistance here, and how we've seen the EMAs do a really strong job of keeping this thing down. Even earlier when we were converging and it looked like it was going to start pumping, it got above. It never really closed above the cloud. The EMAs were converging, but they never fully crossed to a bullish configuration, and the cloud continued to look bullish with a pretty stiff ceiling, right? So now here, you're seeing the cloud finally flattens out. You see a reversal. It's turning green and pushing up, and at the same time, we've crossed above the 222. This entire downtrend, at no point did we cross above the 222. So from here, in late July, all the way to the bottom of this sell-off, from right here to the bottom of this downtrend, we never got remotely close. We only got above the 55 a couple times, and when we did, we got rejected by the 99. So last night when we were talking about this, for those who were in the stream, you remember. For those who weren't in the stream, I'll tell you, you can go back and watch it. But I was explaining exactly what I just showed you, how we haven't really gotten above the 99 during this entire downtrend. I specifically said, now that we're getting above 99, I'm starting to get a lot more confidence. We came down, got all the support at the 55, and I said, you know what, now's the time to enter. But I specifically remember looking at the 222 and saying, wow, if we can get above that 222, that's going to be an incredibly bullish sign. And that's exactly what's happened. Not only did we push above the 222, but we didn't correct right back. If you look at this other time, when we started breaking above all the resistance, right, and it looked like we might get a breakout, look at this. We started breaking through the EMAs. We got this huge pump candle, but look what happened. Immediately, that candle pumped all the way up here and then dumped right back. This next candle pumped all the way up here, dumped right back. These are all wicks, which means none of these candles actually closed above the cloud. They all pumped up and then dumped, and the close of the candle was still down here. That's why you only have a wick. Then you compare that to what we're seeing here, where the actual body of this main pump candle closed above the 222 EMA before it even came back down, and then got support from the 222 EMA. So everything about this is telling me that it's an extremely bullish situation. So for that reason, I am going to lock in some profit, since if everything does dump, I'd like to make some profit on this since I'm going to sleep. If I wasn't going to sleep and I was going to be up for the next 6 hours where I can watch it, I probably would leave my stop loss down here and only lock in like 2 or 3%, because then I can pay attention to it, and if it looks like it is starting to dump, I can sell it a little bit higher to make some more profit before getting stopped out all the way down here. But since I'm going to sleep and all the other reasons we discussed, I'm splitting it with two stop losses. I haven't checked Discord in a while. So I don't know. I had said earlier in the stream to use the YouTube or the premium group on Discord. Looks like nobody posted any questions or anything good. That is just plug my charger in real quick. All right, I definitely have to go to sleep, so let me wrap up here. Yeah, this has been an hour. I was gonna do like a 15-minute one. Sorry, bear with me one sec. Where was I? Here we go. $75.06. I hate some of the stuff about Discord. No, I think it's the other one. All right, so all right, where was I? Okay, so you know what I'm doing. That's my plan for KMD. We've talked about BNB, XLM a lot. We covered all that stuff. Oh yeah, RVN. Do I get a position open? I'm trying to see. I was looking at it earlier. It's kind of tough. Because I want to re-enter on RVN, but I'm not sure how to time this. We're holding right where I had my old entry the last time I had bought in when I had doubled the position, right over here. But we're a little south of that. All right, I don't know if I'm going to do anything with RVN just yet. Hot, we talked about. LTC I'm out of. Link we talked about, still open. Just kind of seeing what happens here. I think we're still going to push up. Got the ZIL trade that's been holding. We're going to let that play out. Back in Ren, obviously, so we discussed that. My one trade is just moving sideways for now. We haven't talked about this one, but obviously, good trade. It's moving sideways, but I haven't gotten a big breakout yet, but I think we can. So this was 1, 2. Now this would be like subwave 1, 2, and we're you know what I'm saying. We got a lot of room to grow here on 1 as well. Oh shit! Yeah, I forgot I actually got stopped out. on this one. So I had my stop loss a little bit higher on Matic, and I moved it down a little bit lower, and then sure enough, I ended up getting stopped out. That's what the alert was. I was wondering why my phone was dinging. So for my original entry, which was lower, I have another stop loss right here. It looks like that wick didn't quite get that stop loss. Now, usually my charts are slightly off. My real stop loss is a little lower. So this shows at 1525. I think my real stop loss is like 1518 or something. But it's pretty much at the same spot. That wick was really close, so I didn't get stopped out entirely. It looks like I should... it should hold. If that actually holds, if it does stop me out, it's fine. Obviously, I'm happy to take another 8.5% profit. I already took 17% profit on the first dump before I bought back here, and then I got out risk-free. So for the rest of my trade, I'll be happy to take some profits if it does stop me out. But if we move up from here, that's going to be great. I think... 1, 2. I don't have like a good count using an Elliott wave count, at least in this instance. It's kind of a tough one to count. This really should be 1, 2, 3, 4. Theoretically, that could work. If this was a 1, 2, 3, pretty deep wave 4 correction, and now we run from there in wave 5 to finish this first cycle. It wouldn't be all the way up there. It would end at this resistance. So if that were to happen, it would go up to about that resistance. It might actually be a good time to enter because it is sitting right on support right now, which is formed like this. Either we get a truncated fifth, and then we end up with like a WXY, and we have to figure out a more complex corrective wave, or what if it's this? Might make things a lot easier. Now, the only issue here is if we do drop any lower, that's going to invalidate this count because wave 4 can't finish beyond the end of wave 1, right? You can't have wave 4 fall into wave 1 territory. So for that reason, since this count needs this to stay right here and hold right there, that kind of makes it a good potential entry, right? Because if it does fall below, the count's invalidated, and we don't want to be in the trade. So look at this. This is what I would do. If I set my order right around there, this actually works out really well because I'm going to buy in right here. And then my stop loss, I'll risk like 2.5% more or less. But I'll be able to set my stop loss right where I have my stop loss. Here, right around here from my other trade, right? So I have 8.5% profit locked in right here. I'm going to put my stop loss for this new entry at this exact same place. So if this does end up hitting at 1522, 1520, if that hits, I will get 100% stopped out of Matic. I'll have a nice big chunk of profit, and I will lose a tiny amount of that profit from losing 2.5% on this portion. I'm actually going to do that right now. So hold on, let me just place this buy order, get my Matic order going, and then we will see. Nice. I'm getting in lower. I'll update the chart in a second, but hold on. From 1555 to 1565. I already had some of the lower orders fill, so that's good. I'm going to say rough entry, just call it 1550 to make it easy. Which means technically, if I place my stop loss together, if this is my average entry and my stop loss is right here, I'm going to end up with about 2% risk. Let's just call it 2.5. Oh no, where did I have it before? Oh, that was 2.2. Yeah, I'm going to call it 2.5% risk, roughly. Alright, let me get, I just got my buy orders filling, but let me get my stop loss set up so I can get that going in a sec. Alice, Alice is a new member, by the way, guys. But are you in here, Alice? If you are, you could type in here in disconnect in her. I was gonna say if you wanted to type, say hi and introduce yourself, you could ask any questions. We're just wrapping up, but you can watch back this whole stream from the beginning. It'll be up momentarily. You can use the same link, just refresh the page in like in a half hour or something. But I just got back into Matic right here, so I got a nice bag for Matic with my stop loss risking 2.5% right down here. And again, because of the nature of this count, either we ended up already with a completion, so it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 4, 5 with a truncated fifth. In which case we're going to end up with a more complex correction than we already have. I think what's more likely, what actually fits, is we got this deeper wave 4. It certainly makes sense. It could fit as long as we don't go any lower. If we do drop below here, then we're invalidating that count. All right, we went summarized all the other trades up here. We ended up down here on Matic. So let me go to Algo as well. I do have a bag of Algo. From my more recent entry over here. What happened was I had set my buy right here, pretty much exactly right here where it is on the chart, like 765. Usually I don't have my exact orders on the charts that I share with you guys, but this one actually was. This candle, that wick, came so close, but it never filled. So I FOMO'd in after it already started pumping and got in on this green candle, but it's not worth doing a whole chart for it. I got in just below the 90-90 EMA. So I just left this chart. But yeah, I'll just estimate it here. It doesn't have to be precise. So it was right around there. My risk is about that too. So now on this trade, so I had gotten stopped out on this retrace, and that was for my big order. I had a big bag of algo here. I got stopped out. I think I ended up with what, 7 or 8% profit? Yeah, 8.75 on that stop. Now on this one, I'm up roughly 5.5 to 6%. But I think this was that finished correction. I think we're on that next impulse here. So if that was wave 3, that puts us in the beginning stages of wave 5, which could actually be pretty substantial when you're looking at how this count has proceeded. We had, that was my original target. So instead, let me see if I can adjust this count a bit. So we had this major correction, right? And then this entire run really starts with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is what I would want to see. 1, 2. This doesn't work, see? So this, wave 4, retraces too far where it would invalidate the count. Because wave 4 can't retrace lower than the top of wave 1, right? So that count actually won't work. So I would have to mess around with this and see if I can come up with a count that fits better. But what I can tell you is regardless of what the ultimate count is for this entire sequence, this portion right here definitely was a correction, and now we're in another motive wave, right? So this is going to be an impulse. I can't come up with a really good target for it without getting a better overall count and then doing some Fibonacci, but for now, at least for tonight, I'll look at it more tomorrow. I am in and I'm holding. It could be a good trade to get into now. It's just a little bit more risky since we're not sitting right on the support anymore. So since this right here, you can see the top of this move, and then over here, that was another resistance. It was kind of working for resistance here, but again, a lot of support once it got over here. And then over here, again, you can see those reversals are all right around this level. A lot of resistance and resistance and resistance, and now support, support, support. Since this 804 support and resistance right here is actually a pretty good, strong one, if you look, the current price is 2.6% above that support. So what I would do in this scenario, I'm already in algo, but if I wasn't, I would set my order right around here at the bottom of this green candle. So if it does dip back down to the beginning of that green candle, I could. That's when my order will fill. My order will fill, like it just did. It just dipped back down, right? So if I set my order right here at the bottom of this green candle, or even slightly lower, I can enter, and then my stop loss would go like 2.4% below my entry. And look, that stop loss would be below the 55 EMA, which is right here, and that 804 support we were just talking about that was holding up pretty well. So you could actually get in right around here and risk like 2.4, 2.5% and have a pretty good trade. It's not as good of a trade as this because we got in, again, you know how I like to get in at the beginning of these things. So we got in right at the bottom, so that would have been a great entry if you could have gotten in. But if you missed it, you could still get in right now. It's just a lot riskier of a trade. But you could still get in here and then set your stop loss below the 55 EMA and this horizontal support, the yellow line right there. All right, that's it. I think that's all. There's nothing else on here that I'm in or trades that I was considering getting in. At least not for right now. FDM I was watching earlier. I love that it's building support from the Ichima dynamics. I love that it's crossed over the 55 and the 99. The 55 and the 99 are now converging. I love that it continued across the entirety of the Ichimoku cloud. And I love how strong it's getting rejected from one of my key support resistance levels that I've had on this chart for God knows how long, right at 1970. So I had this chart with this white line ages ago, and now it was really strong support there. It failed. And now it's really strong resistance. This is really trying to push up, and it's getting bounced right back down off of that support. But look where it's bouncing. It's going up, and then it's bouncing off of our Ichima dynamic supports, right? Our Ichima system. Then it goes back, resistance, back to the 99. Back up, back to the 99. This could actually be a great time to get into FTM, so I'm thinking about I might do that. So if I were to enter, say, right here, my stop loss, if it was 3%, I would have the 55 and the 99 EMAs. That's a little bit tight. That's not a great trade right there. I like the prospects of this trade. I think this being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Damn it. Something like that, right? Now, if that is the case, let's see what 1618 extension would look like from wave 1. Man, don't you love when I do that? How awesome is that? I just, with the naked eye, I just say wave 3 would be right around here. And then I do the fib, and the 1618 extension is like right there. You do this enough, it just happens like that. So yeah, this actually could be a great trade. The issue is not having a lot of support to protect my trade. But since we're on a wave 3 here, where we could potentially see a move of 16%, just to finish out the sub count, doesn't include the rest of it, which could go a lot higher, obviously. I would only get into this trade if I can do it with reasonable risk. If I can properly mitigate and control my risk, which is the basis for my whole strategy, then I would do it. It doesn't look like I'll be able to do that though. If I were to enter a little bit lower though, that would work. Let's see. See, this I can handle. 2% risk is great. I would love 2% on this trade. So 16% profit, right? Up here. 16% profit for this individual wave for 2% risk. That would give me a risk to reward ratio of 8. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So it's essentially like having 8 to 1 odds, kind of, right? I will make 8 times as much as I risk. As much as my risk would be, and percentage-wise. So in order to do that, make that work, I want to get both EMAs. I would really love to get more support in there, but it's so tough. I don't think I can really do it without taking on too much risk. So I'm going to set an order here where I take no more than 2% risk. So my stop loss is probably going to be right around 1880, maybe like 1 or 2 sats in either direction. And my entry has got to be lower. It can't be where it is right now, because if it's where it is right now, I would probably have to take on more like 2.4% risk, which I do not want to do. 2% is my limit. So I'm setting my entry price. I'm setting my entry orders down here at the bottom of this red candle. So my entry order is going to be 1915 to 1919. I would say 1915 to 1920 is where I'm going to place my order, somewhere in that range. And if it does fill, then I'll be able to set my stop loss right here for a very small 2% risk. And if in the next hour, by the time I fall asleep, it doesn't fill, by the time I'm actually in bed, I'll just cancel the order. Because I don't want it to fill overnight. Because if it were to fill overnight, I won't be able to set my stop loss right away, right? I can do that with 3 commas, but we'll get into that tomorrow. All right, so FTM I'm adding on. Besides that, let me set my orders for this real quick. All right, should be good. Hey, wait a minute, actually. I just realized something. Did I not even share my ZIL trade with the basic group? Oh, no, I did. That was the last one. Okay, I was going to say. All right. So I shared FTM with them too. I'm just trying to think if we had any stuff that was just for us that I didn't even share with the basic group. Not that I care. Fucking cheapskates. Just kidding. Man, Medic is getting killed here. Might as well share this with everybody. Alright, Algo, I'm holding. Alright, we got a couple minutes. 2-minute warning. Anybody have any questions? We're done. The stream's over. You guys can leave. But if anybody has any quick questions before I sign off, we can either hop in the voice channel and chat, or you can type to me through the chat right in the YouTube window. Go. Man, look at KMD killing it. All right. For those 6 people who are still in the stream, the other 4 people left, and they are suckers. Because while I said we were done with the stream, luckily I checked this before I signed off. What were we just talking about? All the support from the 222. So you place your stop loss to lock in 7.5%. At worst case scenario, you make 7.5% profit, but it looks like we might push up, and then we can move it up again. Now that's what we get to do. So right now, we are up. All right, so what was I going to say? Yeah. All right. So now we just got an additional 7% profit, right? So now at this point, again, since I'm going to sleep, and I said we have a lot of potential here, and I'm really excited about KMD here, but I don't want to lose all my profit. but at the same time, I want to lock some in, but I don't want to get stopped out. Since I was prepared to have my stop loss up that high, um, these are pretty aggressive upward moving candles. I think we might come back down a little bit. So I don't want to move up my stop loss yet here. But anybody out there who was looking to make profit on this trade and they said, hey, I'm going to do exactly what Jesse said and put my stop loss to lock in 7.5% instead of only locking in 2%, I'd rather lock in as much as I can now because I really need the profits. If that's the case, you might even just want to sell right here, because if you got in when I made the call, you're making 14% profit. So you might want to consider it. I'm going to leave my stop losses where they are right now, just for the time being, until we can get this candle closing, and then we'll have a better idea. All right, so this support, if you didn't notice what I just did, we were talking about how there's no supports there. Like, I was thinking there's nowhere to really set my stop loss, so all I did was zoom out. And I took a quick peek and said, all right, well, when I zoom out, I can see there's actually some prior trading right here where we had a bunch of hourly candles in a row that got support. Then on the way back up, right at that roughly the same level, we see a lot of these candles opening and closing right around the support and resistance. So it's not great, it's helpful. This one's a lot more relevant. I like this one at 880 because that goes back to the major dump here in that bottom, which is obviously huge, right? So that's a pretty good support or resistance. And that's also the 1618. Look how perfect that ended up working out, right? Where I talk about I love that 1618 target. So if this was wave 1 and then a shallow wave 2, that means that wave 3 goes to the 1618 extension right here. If that's going to be the main target, because the 1618 extension is always my main target, then this is perfect. I mean, it looks like it might have already finished. It might push up right here and then correct. So the way this subwave count would look. Just like that. So we might push up a little bit further to that 875 mark and then come back down. But this might also be finished. Technically, this could be the end of wave 5, and now we're going to continue to correct a little bit, which is why I didn't want to have my stop loss where I get, whipped out or something. So this is a tough call because we could keep pushing beyond the 1618 target, but if we do get rejected there, it might be a good idea to move my stop loss up, let it come down and stop me out, and then I can buy back in. But I'm going to be asleep, so I can't really monitor this thing. All right, since the only other support that I can really use is up here, the strong one is going to be a strong resistance. If we get above this resistance, right, I'm going to get an alert. If we can break above that resistance at 880 and get up here, then I will move my stop loss, the entire A and B, both stop losses. I will move it most likely all the way up to around 820. Maybe I will move my. I might leave the 7.5% lock in one and then just take this one that only has 1.5% and move it all the way up here to lock in 13 or 14% profit. But I won't know unless I get this alert to know that we broke this resistance. So I'm gonna leave it for right now, for the time being. I also want to get an alert if we get back down to 822, if we drop south of this support. So if we break through the resistance up top, I want to know because I need to adjust my SLs. If we break down below the support, I'm probably going to want to hop on my phone and check it because I might want to just end up moving my stop loss up, or maybe even just selling for like 9% profit, and then I can re-enter after we bounce. But that's why these alerts are key. Just so you know what I do there, if you go to the side on TradingView where the plus sign is, so you move it to like 862, hit the plus sign, and now it says add alert for Binance KMD BTC at 862. Yes. and then this just adds. It's there, done. So that's all you have to do to add those alerts. And in my case, I get a text, I get an email, and the app notifies me. All right, that's it. Nothing else has changed since the last time we ran through these. So I'm gonna call it a day. If I keep poking through, you know me. I'm gonna find new trades, or I'm gonna find new stuff to talk about. So let's call it a day. It was a good stream, hour and a half, a lot longer than I had planned. But I appreciate you guys coming by. And I will still be available if you need me. Just hit me up in Discord. Otherwise, I'll hit you up tomorrow and we'll do another stream. In the meantime, just trade safe and make sure you're managing risk. If you're worried or if you're taking losses and you don't know what to do, hit me up. I do a live stream one-on-one pretty much every single day. So if you guys need something more personal, just let me know and we can make it work. All right. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Good night.